trying to defend your small community. For one thing, when it comes to martial law, you will not be able to defend your community. This is the part nobody likes to hear. This part. The best. Okay, let me see. How can I say this? What's going to happen? Remember, I said they move the forces to where the problems are. There's less forces in the way of the martial law. There's less appearance of martial law as long as the people are cooperative. When the people aren't cooperative, then they really put out a lot of force. So in other words, these small communities will be faced with like the old days with the castles. You know, the castles, the force would come in and they would say, to tell the castle, the people in the castle, if you surrender now, we will just come into your castle, we will loot it, and just take what we want, we'll move on. Okay, if you refuse, then we are going to kill all of you. And we're going to take everything. And that's what they did. And the thing is, they would go in, they would kill everybody, and they would rape and pillage and do all this kind of nasty stuff. And then the word would get out. Your force is a terrible, mean force. Don't try to fight them. And so when they come to the next castle, and then they'll come up there and say, let us come in, we're going to loot and rape, and then we'll move on. And then you're going to think, that's the last place they went, they killed everybody and they tortured, and it was a terrible, terrible thing. So then what these people do will surrender. Okay, adios. These people in the next castle will surrender. Okay, and that's the way it's done. That's the reality. And for me, I knew I wasn't going to put up with none of that crap. And I knew that. And I came to this community that I'm setting up at, and I was talking to them, and they're like everybody else. I want to get my gun, I'm going to fight, and I'm going to do, you know what I mean? And the reality is, it's the castle. When you see all the helicopters come in, and the armored vehicles and tanks and shit like that, hey, you guys go to chicken shit and wimp out. And so that's when they told me that. That's what I told them. I told them that they're going to wimp out. They're going to be scared. They won't be able to handle the pressure. I mean, that's not a reality, is what they're talking about. Oh, we're going to grab our gun and we're going to kick ass. That's not the reality. The thing is that got to me, I was talking to the elders, and some of the elders of this community, and they were kind of like me. They knew the reality that it's going to be nasty. And so then I told them, I said, you know, I can get you out of your community probably within 15 minutes. I've talked about that. I can get anybody out of any place in about 15 minutes. And so I told them the same thing. And then they said, okay, what can we do to stop it? Man, that got my attention. In other words, they knew that they could be chased out. They knew they could lose everything. But they are willing to do just like that first castle that I talked about. They're willing to put up a fight and do what they have to do. Even though the odds are going to be against them, they were willing to do something. And so then I said, okay, well, that's just you old people. That's easy for the old people. You can talk that crap. But how are you going to do it? Who's going to help you? We're right back to three-man militias. You need others. You can't do it by yourself. So then we talked, we shared more information, and like I say, they had people that were like-minded in this small community. Most of the time when people live in small communities like this, they have that mindset. That's why they live in that community. But they had the ages, the young clear on up to the elderly, that all had the same attitude. And I would get to talk to them. I talked to small groups here, small groups there, of all different ages. And so what I do is I separate the BS from the reality. And they had what it took to make a start. And one of the things that really got my attention was the volunteer fire department there. They were all behind the idea, and they know people in the community. So they know that they're not by themselves. They just didn't know how to unite, how to come together. And that's why the three-man militia light bulb just kicked on all over when I started talking about three-man militia. And they already had a lot of the knowledge. They just kept it among themselves instead of sharing it with others. Like I say, they have the paramedics. They know equipment, communications. They had a lot of information. They just didn't know how to share it with the others in the community. And the thing is, and then what got me to stay or tell them I want to stay there, and that's what I've done. I've moved weapons and all kinds of, gold and silver and all kinds of stuff there. And the reason that what got me is when they said they're not going anywhere. This is it. This is going to be their stand. They just need to know how to do it. That's what I was there for. And I've talked to them. A lot of the stuff you've seen on videos that I've made. And it's going to be a tough one. They're willing to do everything that they have to do, and they realize they're going to be the first castle. And the ground is structured the right way and all this stuff. It's going to be kind of like the Indian reservations. They're separated from the rest of the country, just like a castle would be. The reason I'm telling you all this is this is stuff you need to be looking for. And you need to get your attitude properly adjusted along with everybody else in that community. It was funny. I did a class on knife fighting. Well, it wasn't really a class. I did a presentation, and they were all adults. And I explained how a knife fight works. And I didn't cut anybody. I didn't do nothing like that. All I did was talked. And as I spoke, I noticed everybody's eyes were wide open and their mouths were like that. And I couldn't understand what was going on. And when I got done, I had one make a comment to me. And they said that we all like hot dogs, but none of us want to know how the hot dogs are made. And so when I talked about a knife fight, what I was doing is I was sharing what happened to me in Vietnam and what I know of knife fights. And in Vietnam and knife fights, they are to the death. And I explained how they work, how the knife fight does its thing, how to be efficient with it. And I went to too much detail. That's why they told me about the hot dog. They wanted me, the United States government wanted me, and the people wanted me to go to Vietnam and fight their war for them. They don't want to know about the details. So that's basically the same thing. The reason I'm telling you this is basically the same thing with the three-man militia. You will set up, you're doing everything, the skills, the stuff you learn is to help the community. But you're going to learn more. You're going to be called upon to do other things. That's why we don't talk about those other things to start with. We talk about, like I say, first aid, communications, gardening, the food, how to get the food, cook the food. These are all things that we talk about. We don't really go into detail about the other stuff yet. And as time goes on, you find out who has the mindset and who's got the willingness to do it. Not so much the capabilities. You'll find out, and even in the knife fight, you're going to find out you have capabilities you didn't know you had. Or you're going to find out you don't have the capabilities. So capabilities is the one thing we really don't work on, because you won't know until the time comes. But you do have to have that right attitude. So, and how does that relate to living in martial law? I live in martial law right now. I know people, even where I'm at, that have the right attitude. We have weapons. We have everything we need. They have the right attitude. Some of us have the capabilities. And we are prepared to do what we have to do. But then again, remember, I'm living in the city now. Remember, I talked about the rule. I'm living in the city. There's enough of us, I'm not talking about the ones that I know, there's other ones that I don't know, that are still armed. Don't forget, they had a 30-year revolution down here. There's still plenty of guns down here. And they, as in the way of the government and the martial law, do not push too hard. And the reason is, they do realize we still are armed, and there's still people here that are willing to stand. So that's why you see them walking the streets. They don't push, like you see on TV, like World War II, that was during the war. They would push people around, they'd knock them in the head, throw them in the trucks and drag them off and all this kind of stuff. They don't do like that down here. And the reason is, even though they are under martial law, we still have capabilities. We can't take on their whole army, but at the same time, their army can't take on the population. Now the population here, their attitude is they're peace-loving people. And they have food. That'd be different if they didn't have food, but there is food down here. So you can't take their food away from them. You're not going to starve these people out. In the United States, it's different. They will be able to starve you out. So there's going to be some different type tactics that are going to be used up there. So like I say, I'm living in the city. We're still capable of protecting ourselves. We are under martial law. But we do have food. They can't use food as a controlling factor. What they do have is, like I say, we have our Obamacare down here. So what they've done is they've given free medical care to people. Now that free medical care only works on the sickly people. So that's how they're able to control the population. You go along with us, we give you the medical care. Let me check. Yeah, just checking to see if the camera is still going. I don't have a screen I can watch. But anyway, so that's why I'm into natural health. And that's why I try to keep people healthy, so you avoid the medical care. In the United States, the medical care is for money. Down here, the medical care is to control the population. That's what's getting ready to happen in the United States. I've noticed that on the VA. The VA wants to get people like me, veterans, and they want to help us. And the way they've been able to entice many is through the money. Many people are enticed by money. And they ask you questions. Oh, well, we can give you this much disability, and then you collect more money. And so that's an enticement. Okay, now the way they do it, and it's basically the same way they do the Obamacare kind of stuff too, is okay to collect this care, free care, or in the veteran thing, to collect your disability, you need to take this medicine. We need to do this study on you. We need this information about you. There's all kinds of cool ways that they are able to entice people. Be aware, there's many ways martial law can be enforced. It's not always going to be the brutal force that you see in the movies. They rely on the simple minds. They rely on the ignorance of the people. And they help that by giving you food that is toxic. And so you get sickly, so you need their services. That's why I push being healthy naturally, getting good food. I like the way they say it. It's organic. You notice I don't talk about organic, and the reason is organic is a label, and these people pay for the label. Not only the consumer pays for it's organic, they'll pay for it like that, but also the producers pay for using that name, organic. Now, if you think that you're getting organic food, that's part of the stupidity that they promote. As corrupt as our government is, you don't think that corruption goes in business?